They whispered behind her back. They pointed fingers at her shame. They said she would never know the joy of motherhood. But then something happened that left everyone speechless. A twist so shocking that even those who mocked her couldn't believe their eyes. What was this miracle? And how did her sorrow transform into celebration? Stay with me as I share this incredible journey. In a beautiful neighborhood of Port Harcourt, there was a stunning house painted in cream and white. Everyone who walked past would admire it and think, surely this home is filled with happiness. But behind those lovely gates, a silent war was raging, a battle that no outsider could see. And at the heart of the struggle was a woman named Grace. Grace sat on the edge of the sofa, her head bent low, tears streaming down her cheeks. Standing before her was an older woman, Mama Chioma, her mother-in-law. Her voice cut through the air like a knife. Her words were poison. 6 years. 6 whole years you have wasted my son's life. Mama Chioma's voice echoed through the room. I don't understand why Daniel still keeps you under his roof. You are empty. You cannot give him even one child. What purpose do you serve in this marriage? Grace pressed her fingers together tightly and kept her eyes fixed on the floor. Her heart was shattering into pieces. She wished she could disappear, wished the ground would swallow her whole. She felt worthless and hollow. These cruel words had become Grace's daily bread. The same painful reminders, the same harsh judgment about her childlessness. But Mama Chioma wasn't alone in this torment. Other members of Daniel's family joined in the mockery. They gossiped when she walked by. They stared at her with accusing eyes. Daniel, her husband, did his best to shield her. But no matter how hard he tried, they always found new ways to wound her spirit. But life wasn't always this way. Grace's story didn't start with tears. Unlike most tales that begin in darkness and end in light, hers began with light. But fate had different plans written for her. The year before their wedding, Daniel's life changed dramatically. He secured a massive construction contract with an oil company, and everything shifted overnight. He became successful beyond measure. Money flowed like rivers. His family celebrated with loud cheers. Grace believed God had smiled upon them both. After their wedding, Daniel repeated one thing constantly. Grace, you don't need to work. I have enough wealth to give you everything your heart desires. Let me provide for you. Grace disagreed. She wanted to build something of her own. But Daniel was the type of man who believed a wife's place was in the home. Grace loved him deeply. So she sacrificed her dreams to maintain harmony in their marriage. In the beginning, everything was beautiful. They laughed together. They planned their tomorrow. They waited for children. But 3 years passed and no baby arrived. People expected announcements, but medical tests brought no good news. When they visited the hospital, the doctor examined them both and said, "You are both perfectly healthy." Grace smiled on the outside, but fear gripped her inside. Daniel tried to remain hopeful, but she could see worry creeping into his eyes. 3 more years slipped away. Still nothing. That's when Mama Chioma moved into their home. And from that moment, Grace's tears outnumbered her smiles. "You are a barren woman." The elderly woman screamed again in the sitting room. Grace remained seated on the couch, feeling like she was drowning. Each word from Mama Chioma felt like another stone tied to her chest. Grace glanced around the room. Her heart was breaking bit by bit. Every single day, deep in her spirit, she whispered prayers. God, please don't forget me. Please wipe away these tears from my face. One quiet Saturday morning, Grace went to the market to buy household items. The moment she stepped out, Mama Chioma called out, "Daniel, come to the sitting room. We need to talk." Daniel walked in slowly and sat down. He already recognized that tone in his mother's voice. It never brought good news. Mama Chioma crossed her arms and fixed him with sharp eyes. "Daniel," she said, "are you not exhausted? 6 years now and still no child." Daniel kept his gaze on the floor. Deep in his heart, he was tired. He loved Grace, but the waiting was crushing his spirit. His friends all had children. People were asking uncomfortable questions. He felt pressure from every direction, but he would never say it aloud. "I still love my wife. The doctor confirmed there's nothing wrong with either of us." Daniel said quietly, Mama Chioma leaned forward. Love doesn't produce children. You need a different woman. A woman who can give us an heir to carry this family forward. Daniel looked up quickly, shocked. Mama, how can you suggest that? He said firmly, Grace is my wife. I won't abandon her. I won't break her heart. Mama Chioma hissed loudly. You are blind, my son. You will live to regret this, Daniel. One day you will wake up old, and there will be no one to call you father. Think carefully. Daniel stood up. His voice trembled, but he tried to stay strong. I said no. Please don't mention this again. He left the sitting room and went straight to his bedroom, closing the door behind him. That night, Grace slept peacefully beside him, but Daniel couldn't find sleep. His eyes remained wide open. His heart felt burdened. His mother's words played repeatedly in his mind like a broken record. A new wife, no heir, 6 years wasted. He turned his head and looked at Grace's face. She looked so peaceful, so innocent. Her hand rested on the pillow near his. He loved her. He truly did. But what if she never became a mother? What if the doctor was mistaken? He remembered the doctor's words. You are both perfectly healthy. Daniel rubbed his temples slowly. He wished he could create a miracle. He wished he could erase all this pain. He whispered softly, God, please help us. But he knew the real battle had just started because his mother wouldn't stop. And soon everyone would know exactly how far she was willing to push. And Daniel feared one thing above all else. What if these 6 years turn into forever? 1 week later, Mama Chioma organized a family gathering in Daniel's house. All the immediate relatives arrived. They sat in the sitting room with stern faces. Grace sat beside Daniel on the couch, her hands trembling. She knew something terrible was coming. Mama Chioma stood up and spoke first. We all know why we've gathered here, she said. This woman has been in our family for 6 years with nothing to show. No child. Grace felt her heart constrict. She couldn't even lift her head. Another uncle spoke up. Daniel, you cannot continue this way. You need a child who will carry your father's legacy forward. If your wife, Grace, cannot provide one, then we must find a woman who can. Daniel looked at them in disbelief. Grace stared at her knees. She wanted to speak, but no words formed. She already felt like an outsider in her own home. She felt small, like she didn't belong here anymore. The hurtful comments continued. You've wasted our time. You're not a complete woman. A married woman without children is not fit to be called a wife. Tears rolled down Grace's cheeks. She covered her face with her hands. Even Daniel couldn't take it anymore. That's enough, he shouted, standing up. This is my home. I'm the head here. I'll manage my household as I see fit. Everyone, please leave now. The room went silent. One of the women stood up and looked at Daniel with a cold smile. This isn't a home until there are children, she said. You have nothing to prove us wrong. Daniel wanted to argue, but inside his heart, he knew they had struck his weakest point. He became speechless. One by one, they picked up their bags and left the house. Mama Chioma stood and pointed at Daniel. Think carefully, she said. I won't allow you to end your father's lineage. The house fell quiet. Later that evening, the weight on Daniel's shoulders felt unbearable. He needed air. He needed escape. He went out to a bar with his friends. They laughed. They drank. They talked about their families. My son won first prize at a school competition, one friend said proudly. Daniel sat there silent. He felt like he didn't fit in that circle anymore. Then one friend looked at him closely. Daniel, are you not tired? He asked. 6 years, brother. 6 years without a child. Why not take another wife? Those words struck Daniel hard. He forced a smile. He didn't want to admit the truth. He loved Grace, but life was pushing him into a corner. He felt trapped. When he finally drove home, his mind was heavy. Too many voices, too many opinions, too much pressure. As he walked into the sitting room, he saw Grace sitting alone. Her eyes were red from crying all day. Her face was sorrowful. The words in the family were still echoing in her mind. Daniel looked at her. This woman who had been nothing but good to him. He looked at himself, a man drowning in pressure. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know how to feel. So he walked past her and went straight to the bedroom. Grace watched him leave. Her heart sank deeper. Both of them were hurting. Both of them were lost. From that night, something began to grow between Daniel and Grace. A quiet distance. At first, Daniel only wanted a little space to clear his thoughts. But he didn't realize that the space would slowly push his marriage into darkness. Days passed, then weeks. Daniel stopped comforting Grace the way he used to. When Mama Chioma insulted Grace, he sometimes walked past as if he heard nothing. He no longer defended her. He didn't hold her hands. He was lost in his own fear. Grace felt the change. One evening when Daniel walked into the sitting room, and Mama Chioma began again, "You are a barren woman. I still don't know why you're still here." Grace looked at Daniel, waiting for him to defend her, but he kept walking and entered his bedroom without a word. Grace's eyes filled with tears immediately. Mama smiled. She knew her plan was working. One afternoon, Mama Chioma called Daniel to the sitting room. When he walked in, he stopped. Beside his mother sat a young woman he had never seen before. She sat with her hands folded on her lap, looking calm and gentle. Mama Chioma spoke with a sweet voice. "Daniel, meet Amaka," she said. "She is a very good woman." Amaka looked up at Daniel with a small smile. "Good afternoon, sir," she said quietly. "My name is Amaka." Daniel gave a slow nod, still confused why his mother had invited her. He went to sit down. Amaka stood up and sat beside him, but not too close. She spoke in a kind, gentle tone. Her words soothed him. For the first time in a long while, someone spoke to ease his burden instead of adding to it. Mama Chioma sat back, watching like a hunter watching prey walk into a trap. As days went by, Amaka kept visiting the house. She would talk to Daniel, listen to him, and smile at him in a way that made him feel understood. Grace noticed it. She saw how Daniel's face brightened when Amaka was around. She saw how he listened to Amaka the way he once listened to her. One evening, Daniel and Amaka were talking in the sitting room. Grace walked in holding a glass of water. She stood there hoping Daniel would look at her, say something or smile. But Daniel didn't notice her. He was lost in Amaka's soft voice. Grace turned around quietly and walked back to the bedroom. Her heart grew heavier than ever. The distance between husband and wife was now wide, and Amaka was slowly filling the empty space Daniel left behind. What Grace didn't know was that the real danger wasn't just the distance, but what would happen if Daniel's heart finally crossed over to someone else. Days passed slowly, and the distance between Daniel and Grace became a wide wall that no one could climb. Daniel stopped caring about Grace. He no longer asked if she had eaten. He no longer asked if she was well. His heart had drifted far away. Amaka seized that opportunity. She stayed close to Daniel. She spoke to him tenderly day and night. Soon their relationship became strong, too strong. One day, Daniel made a choice that shocked everyone. "I want to marry Amaka," he told Mama Chioma. Mama Chioma clapped her hands in joy. She wasted no time. The wedding was small and done in a quiet, traditional ceremony. And that afternoon, Amaka entered the house not as a visitor, but as Daniel's second wife. From the first night, Amaka began to show her true character. She looked at Grace with pride in her eyes. "This is my house now," she said one evening. "You should know your place." Grace kept quiet, but the pain in her heart kept growing every day. She no longer slept beside Daniel. She now slept alone in a separate room, like she was no longer a wife, like she had no value anymore. As if that wasn't enough, Amaka started causing trouble between them. Sometimes she would lie against Grace. "Daniel, she insulted me. Daniel, she stole my things." Daniel never asked Grace for her side of the story. He always shouted at her. He always believed Amaka. One day, Amaka started feeling unwell. Daniel quickly took her to the hospital. After tests were done, the doctor smiled. "Congratulations," he said. "You're pregnant." Daniel's heart leaped with joy. He hugged Amaka tightly. For the first time in years, he felt hope. Mama Chioma almost danced. "A real woman," she shouted. "God has blessed us." From that day, Amaka walked around with pride. She would look at Grace and laugh. "You stayed here for 6 years," she said, "and yet no child. What kind of woman are you? Grace went into her room, locked the door, and wept. She prayed hard every night. She begged God to help her. But the storm was still not over. One afternoon, Daniel was in his study, going through some documents. Suddenly, he heard a loud scream. "Ah, help me." He rushed out with fear in his heart. He saw Amah on the floor, crying and holding her stomach. Grace stood a few steps away, shocked and confused. Amah pointed at Grace and shouted, "She pushed me. She wants me to lose my baby." Daniel's eyes widened. "Grace, why would you do that?" he shouted. Grace shook her head, crying, "No, Daniel, I didn't touch her. She fell by herself. Please believe me. I would never hurt her." But Daniel was blind with anger. "You are wicked," he shouted. "You're jealous. You want to destroy my happiness." He walked into Grace's room in anger and grabbed Grace's clothes from the wardrobe. He packed them into bags and threw them out into the compound. Grace fell to her knees, holding his leg. "Daniel, please. We built this life together. Please don't do this. I've done nothing wrong." Amah stood behind him, smiling quietly. Her plan had worked. Daniel pulled his leg away from Grace. "Leave my house now," he shouted. "If you ever step into this house again, you'll regret it." Grace looked at Daniel with heartbreak. She couldn't believe this was the man she loved. She picked up her bag slowly. Tears ran down her face. "I don't know what wrong I've done," she whispered. "God sees my heart." With weak steps, she walked away from the gate, away from her home, away from a man she once trusted with her whole soul. The road ahead looked empty. Her future looked dark. But she kept walking, not knowing that life still had a story written for her. Grace kept walking through the streets, crying and thinking about everything that had happened. Hours passed and the sun began to set. That's when a frightening thought hit her. Where will I sleep tonight? She stopped by the roadside and sat on a low cement block. Cars passed. People walked by. But no one cared about the woman with tears in her eyes. Grace took out her phone and tried to call a few of her friends. Friends were doing well. Friends she had helped before, but every call ended the same way. Grace, I wish I could help, but my house is full. My husband won't allow it. I'm not at home. Try someone else." Grace dropped her phone on her lap. She felt forgotten. She felt alone. She covered her face with both hands and prayed quietly. "Oh, God, please help me." Just then, she remembered someone, a friend named Blessing, a woman who was also struggling in life. Grace had once helped her with money when she needed it. Grace didn't want to burden her, but she had no choice. Her fingers shook as she dialed the number. "Hello?" Blessing's voice came from the phone. Grace tried to sound strong, but her voice broke. "Blessing, please can I stay at your place tonight? Just tonight?" There was silence for a moment. Then Blessing asked, "What happened? Why would you sleep outside? You have your husband's house." Grace wiped her tears. "It's a long story. Please, I'll explain everything when I arrive." Blessing's voice softened. "All right, come. You can stay with me. You're my friend." Later that night, Grace arrived at Blessing's small apartment. The room was tiny with just one bed and a small chair, but it felt like safety. Blessing looked at Grace's swollen eyes. "My sister, what happened?" she asked gently. Grace told her everything from the insults to the pregnancy to being thrown out like she was nothing. Blessing held her hand and said, "Grace, you're welcome here. You can stay for as long as you need. I don't have much, but we'll manage together. You're not alone." Grace couldn't hold her tears anymore. She cried in Blessing's arms, whispering, "Thank you. Thank you so much." Blessing nodded. "God sees everything. Your tears today won't last forever." Grace lay on the bed and closed her eyes. Her chest still hurt. Her heart still ached. But for the first time that day, she felt a small ray of hope. She didn't know how tomorrow would be. She didn't know what her future held. But she knew one thing. This was not the end of her story. 2 days passed in Blessing's small room. Grace watched how hard Blessing worked just to buy food for both of them. Blessing woke early. She came back late. Grace didn't want to be a burden. She wanted to help with expenses. So the next morning, Grace packed her certificates and wore the neat blouse and skirt she still had. She stepped out with hope. She walked from one office to another, smiling and asking for work. But the answer was always the same. How many years of work experience do you have? Grace would look down. I don't have experience, sir. Sorry, we cannot hire you. She heard that again and again. Every rejection felt like another slap. She remembered how Daniel never allowed her to work. Now she was paying the price. One afternoon, as Grace was walking back with tired legs and a tired heart, she saw a small restaurant with a paper pasted at the door that said, "Help Needed." She stopped and looked at the restaurant. It wasn't the kind of job she dreamed of, but she needed something. Anything. She stood for a moment, thinking, should I try? Will they accept me? Finally, she took a deep breath and walked in. Good afternoon, Ma. Grace said to the owner. I saw the sign outside. Please, I can work. I'll do anything. The woman looked at her from head to toe. At first, she shook her head. I don't think you can do this kind of job, she said. You look like someone from a wealthy background. Grace almost cried, but she begged. Please, Ma, I really need this job. Let me try. You won't regret it. After thinking for a moment, the woman agreed. All right, you can start tomorrow. Grace's face lit up with relief. She thanked her again and again. That night, she told Blessing about the job. Blessing smiled and hugged her. My sister, God is opening a new door for you. And the job even gave Grace one meal every day. She always shared it with Blessing at night. Days passed. Grace worked hard in the restaurant. She was still healing from heartbreak, but she was moving forward. One morning, as she got ready for work, she suddenly felt dizzy. The room spun around her. Before she could sit, she fell to the floor, and everything went dark. When she opened her eyes again, she was on a bed in a small clinic. Blessing sat beside her, holding her hand and smiling. You scared me, Blessing said softly. Grace blinked. What happened? Just then, the doctor walked in with a small file in his hand. Madam Grace, he said, you're 4 weeks pregnant. Grace sat up quickly. Pregnant? She asked. Her voice shook with shock. Yes, the doctor nodded. Some women don't see early signs of pregnancy, but you're fine. The baby is fine. Grace touched her stomach slowly. Tears filled her eyes, not of sadness, but of surprise. After the doctor left, Blessing looked at her and whispered, Will you tell Daniel? Grace shook her head. No, he made it clear he doesn't want me. So I'll take care of my baby myself. God will help me. Blessing held her hand tightly. You're strong, Grace. This child will be your blessing. Grace looked up at the ceiling and whispered a prayer. Maybe life was giving her a new reason to live. In that same city, far away from Grace's troubles, a great event was happening. Chief Adekunle, a 50-year-old billionaire, was launching a brand new hospital for the poor and needy. People clapped, cameras flashed, reporters surrounded him. Chief Adekunle smiled as he spoke to the crowd. I know what it means to suffer, he said. I grew up with nothing. My mother struggled to send me to school. Today, God has lifted me, so I must lift others too. The crowd cheered louder. He cut the ribbon, and the doors of the hospital opened for the first time. It was the biggest charity project the city had seen, and Chief Adekunle was proud that the hospital would help people who had no money, just like he once had none. Back in Blessing's small room, Grace was trying her best to build a new life. She had told her boss about her pregnancy. Her boss congratulated her and promised to support her in the little way she could. Grace continued working and saving little by little. She saved for antenatal checkups. She saved for delivery. She saved for the future of her child. She couldn't afford a scan, so she didn't know if the baby was a boy or a girl. But she talked to her belly every night. My child, you're my hope. You're my reason to smile again. Blessing always watched Grace smiling. God has finally remembered you, she would say. Grace grew stronger each day. The tears she once cried started to fade. There was now a light in her eyes. Months passed slowly. Her stomach became big and heavy. One afternoon, her boss at the restaurant called her. Grace, you've worked hard, but now you must rest. I don't want anything to hurt you or your baby. Go home and take care of yourself." Grace thanked her boss with tears of gratitude. She stopped working and focused on her health. Every kick inside her belly reminded her that God was writing a new chapter in her life. She didn't know how the future would look. She didn't know how she would raise this child alone. But she had faith. Weeks passed. Grace's belly grew bigger and heavier. Blessing was always there to help, cooking for her, helping her walk, and keeping her company. Then one morning, everything changed. Grace reached out to take a cup of water from the table in front of her. Blessing was getting ready to go to work. But suddenly, Grace held her stomach and screamed in pain. "Blessing, something is happening," she cried. Her water had broken. Blessing rushed to her side, trying to calm her. "Sit down, Grace. Breathe. I'm here." Grace moaned softly, tears in her eyes. Blessing quickly ran outside to the roadside and stopped a taxi. "Please help us. My friend is in labor," she shouted. She ran back inside, helped Grace up, and together they got into the taxi, heading straight to the small clinic where Grace had been doing her antenatal care. When they arrived, nurses rushed Grace into the labor room. Blessing waited outside, praying. Minutes later, the doctor came out with a worried look. "Is she your family?" he asked. "Yes, doctor," Blessing replied nervously. "Has she ever done a scan?" he asked again. Blessing shook her head. "No, doctor. We couldn't afford it." The doctor sighed. "There's a strong possibility she has more than one baby in her womb. She doesn't have the strength to push them out. She needs surgery." Blessing's hands trembled. "Surgery? But this clinic? Can you do it here?" The doctor shook his head slowly. "No, we don't have the right equipment for that. You must take her to a bigger hospital now. If we wait too long, it may be dangerous for her and the babies." Fear filled Blessing's eyes. "Doctor, we have no money," she whispered. But the doctor looked at her with kindness. "There's a new big hospital not too far from here," he said. "They just opened. It's a charity hospital. Treatments are free for now. I'll help you get her there." Blessing almost cried from relief. "Thank you, doctor. Please help us." Immediately, the doctor arranged an ambulance. Nurses lifted Grace onto a stretcher and pushed her into the ambulance. Blessing held her hand the whole way, whispering prayers. At the new hospital, doctors rushed Grace into the theater. The surgery began. Hours later, the doctor came out smiling. "Congratulations," he said. "She's given birth to 4 babies, 2 boys and 2 girls." Blessing covered her mouth in joy. Tears filled her eyes. "4?" she asked. "Yes." The doctor nodded proudly. "They're all fine and she's safe." The hospital staff were amazed. It was their first case of quadruplets. The story spread quickly. Soon the news was everywhere. People were shocked. A woman had given birth to not 1, not 2, but 4 children. The world was about to find out, and everything in Grace's life was about to change forever. The day after Grace gave birth, the hospital staff came into a room with papers and cameras. "Madam Grace," a nurse said gently, "we need to take records. Not many women give birth to 4 babies at once." Grace nodded, still weak but grateful. Then that afternoon, something surprising happened. Government officials arrived at the hospital with security officers and reporters, microphones, cameras, bright lights. Everyone wanted to see the woman who gave birth to quadruplets. The reporters asked questions. "Where's your husband? Does he know you gave birth to 4 babies? Why isn't he here?" Grace took a deep breath. Her voice was soft but steady. "My husband threw me out because I couldn't give him a child," she said. "But after I left, I discovered I was already pregnant. He has remarried. He doesn't care about me, and I cannot go back to him." The room fell silent. Even the reporters lowered their microphones. Everyone could feel her pain in those few words. Then a woman from the government stepped forward with a warm smile. "Madam Grace," she said, "the government is here to support you. You're a strong woman. We want to help you and your children." They gave her grants to help with food, health, and baby needs. Grace couldn't stop crying. For the first time in a very long time, life was smiling at her again. In another part of the city, A large office building stood tall. Inside the top-floor office, Chief Adekunle, the billionaire who built the new hospital, was seated behind his desk. He was watching the news on the large TV screen. In front of him, Grace's face was on the screen. Her voice filled the room. Chief Adekunle leaned forward, listening closely. He remembered the story his mother told him about what she went through because of childlessness before she finally had him after a decade of humiliation. He remembered how his own mother had suffered when people mocked her. He remembered the tears, the shame, the sleepless nights. His heart tightened. This wasn't just a story. It was a pain he understood too well. He watched Grace hold one of the babies and smile a tired smile. He said quietly to himself, "This woman has suffered enough. I must help her." He picked up his phone and called someone. "Find out everything about that woman," he said. "I want to meet her." Little did Grace know her life was about to change again. And this time the change would be bigger than anything she had ever imagined. 2 days later, Grace was still in the hospital, slowly getting back her strength. Carrying 4 babies in her womb and giving birth to them had drained her body. She lay on the bed holding one of her babies while the others slept in tiny cots beside her. That afternoon, the door opened gently. A tall man in a neat suit walked in with 2 security officers behind him. It was Chief Adekunle. Grace looked up surprised. He gave her a warm smile and walked closer. "Good afternoon, Madam Grace," he said kindly. "I saw your story on TV. It touched my heart deeply. My mother once suffered like you. I know how pain can break a woman, so I came to help." Grace's eyes widened. "Sir, thank you. I don't even know what to say," she replied with weak tears in her eyes. Chief Adekunle sat beside her bed. "Tell me, Grace," he asked softly, "do you have any skill or something you can do to take care of these children, since there's no man supporting you now?" Grace nodded slowly. "I studied accounting in school. I graduated with first-class honors, but my ex-husband didn't allow me to work. He always said he would take care of me. He insisted he doesn't want his wife to work under anyone. I didn't agree with his thinking, but I kept quiet to keep peace in the home. And after I left him, companies wanted workers with experience. I have none." Chief Adekunle sighed. Her story touched him even more. "You worked hard in school," he said. "You deserve a chance in life, and I want to help you." Grace covered her mouth, shocked. "Sir, are you truly going to do this for me?" she asked. "Yes," Chief Adekunle replied firmly. "You won't suffer again." Tears rolled down Grace's cheeks. "Thank you, sir. God will bless you," she whispered. Chief Adekunle reached into his pocket and gave Grace a business card. "Call me when you're strong enough," he said, "when you and the babies are discharged." Then he stood up and quietly left the room. Grace lay there crying tears of joy. Later that night in his office, Chief Adekunle called his personal assistant. "Prepare a managerial office in the accounting department of my biggest company," he ordered, "and get a house ready in a nice estate. I want everything set as soon as possible." "Yes, sir," the PA responded. Chief Adekunle relaxed in his seat. Helping Grace brought peace to his heart. 1 week later, Grace called him as he instructed. He sent his driver to pick her up. Blessing came along to support her friend. The car stopped in front of a beautiful building in a clean and quiet estate. Chief Adekunle stood beside a sleek black SUV waiting for them. When they stepped out of the car, he smiled. "Welcome." He led them inside the compound. Then he placed a key in Grace's hand. "This is your house now," he said. Grace stood still, frozen. "My house?" she whispered. Her voice shook. "Yes," Chief Adekunle nodded. "You're the owner." Grace dropped to her knees, crying, "Sir, I don't deserve this." "Thank you. Thank you, sir," she sobbed. He gently helped her stand. "You deserve good things, Grace. After 6 months of nursing your babies, I'll hire a nanny. You'll start work in my company. I'm preparing a managerial position for you in one of my companies." Grace covered her face, crying even louder. All the pain she had carried inside finally started to melt. Then Chief Adekunle turned to Blessing. "You're a true friend," he said. "You stood by her when no one else did." If you don't mind, there's a position for you in another branch of my companies. It comes with good pay and an apartment. Blessing gasped and covered her mouth, tears running down. Sir, thank you. I don't know how to thank you. I'll never forget this, she said with a shaking voice. Chief Adekunle smiled. You both will start a new life here, he said. Let the past stay behind you. Grace and Blessing looked at each other, crying and laughing at the same time. For the first time in a long while, life felt safe again. 6 months passed. Grace now lived in the beautiful home Chief Adekunle gave her. She had started work as the account manager in the accounting department of his company. Her babies had grown healthy and strong. A nanny helped her care for them during work hours. Grace's life was finally filled with peace. Meanwhile, far away in another part of the city, Daniel sat alone in his sitting room. He stared at the wall, deep in thought. It had been 6 months since he saw Grace on the news with 4 babies. He covered his face with shame. How could I have been so blind? He whispered to himself. He had tried everything to find her. He asked a friend she once had, but none of them knew where she lived now. Then he remembered Blessing. He went to her old house hoping for answers, but he was told she had moved out long ago. He was told that a black SUV had taken Blessing and the woman with 4 babies. Daniel stood there frozen. He realized how far he had pushed her away. 9 months earlier, Daniel's life had fallen apart. At first, he walked proudly around the house, carrying Amah's baby, feeling like a real father. But the truth soon showed itself. Amah began demanding money every day. At first, Daniel didn't notice anything wrong. He was rich. He didn't care. But then, contracts stopped coming in as they used to. Many companies refused to renew deals with him. His business started shaking. And Amah didn't stop asking for more money. Daniel stayed home more often. That's when he noticed strange things. She always kept her phone close. She left the house to answer calls in secret. She stayed awake at night, laughing while texting. But Daniel was too blind with pride to suspect anything. One afternoon, he sat in the sitting room trying to call a friend about a new contract. Then he heard a phone ring on the chair beside him. It was Amah's phone. He saw the caller name on the screen. My love. Daniel stared at it. His heart shook. He waited for the call to end. Then he opened the phone. It was unlocked. Messages filled the screen. Amah and the man called my love had been speaking for a long time. They talked about how they would run away with Daniel's money. They talked about how foolish Daniel was. Daniel dropped the phone. His heart felt like it had stopped. Amah walked in from the kitchen and saw him holding her phone. She didn't even pretend. She laughed. You finally found out. You're a fool, she said. She went into the bedroom, packed her clothes into a suitcase, carried her child, and walked out the door. Daniel stood still, broken. The child he once called his heir wasn't his. The woman he married never loved him. The woman who truly loved him, he threw away. Even his mother had gone back to the village. He was alone. One day, Daniel's friend sent him an address. Go there, his friend said. They might be interested in your building proposal. Hope sparkled in Daniel's eyes. Maybe this was a chance to rebuild his life. 2 days later, he drove there for the meeting. As he stepped out of his car, he froze. Right in front of him, a woman stepped down from a car, holding her phone. Grace. His heart jumped. He didn't know how to approach her. He stood still, watching her like a man who had seen a ghost. Inside the boardroom, the meeting began. To his shock, Grace was one of the managers. She sat across from him, calm and professional. They asked him questions. Grace asked the smartest ones. He struggled to answer. At the end, he was given the contract. He should have been happy, but he couldn't smile. He looked at Grace and felt a pain sharper than any insult. He had lost something precious. After the meeting, when everyone had left the boardroom, Daniel followed Grace to the parking lot. She was about to enter her car to go for her lunch break. Grace, please, he said. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Grace nodded gently. Daniel, I forgave you long ago. I needed to forgive so I could move on. He tried to hold her hand, but she pulled away. You can see your children, Grace said calmly. They deserve a father. but we can never be husband and wife again. Daniel's voice shook. Grace, please, we can rebuild things. I made a mistake. I know your value now. Grace looked into his eyes. If a man must lose something before he knows its worth, she said, then he doesn't deserve it. She turned and walked away. Daniel stood there, tears in his eyes, watching the woman he had lost forever. He dragged his feet back to his car and cried where no one could see him. He knew the truth now. He had thrown away gold for a handful of sand. On the other side of the city, Grace smiled as she carried her babies. Blessing came every weekend. The nanny helped her daily. Her life was filled with blessings she never dreamed of. Grace said to herself, with God, all things are possible. Nothing is impossible. And truly, her tears had turned into joy. The true meaning of her name has become her reality. They mock Grace. They call her barren. They push her out like she was nothing. But God turned her tears into testimony. The same people who laughed at her now shook their heads in shock. The same man who threw her away now cried for what he lost. And the woman they said could never have a child became a mother of 4 at once. Sometimes when people think your story has ended, God is only getting started. Moral lesson: never look down on anyone who is struggling. Never judge a woman because she has no child. Only God gives children. Delay is not denial. The stone that the builders rejected can become the cornerstone. And when God decides to bless someone, no human can stop it. My wonderful viewers, what did you learn from Grace's story? Which part touched your heart the most? Please share your thoughts in the comment section. I would love to read every one of them. And guess what? I have another very interesting story coming up in a few days. So please subscribe to this channel and turn on your notification bell so you'll be notified the moment the new story drops. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to hit the like button and share this video with your friends and loved ones. Thank you so much for watching. May God bless you and keep you.